handing our stage over to the Defend Juries campaign, because there's another civil liberties campaign court case taking place in the Royal Courts of Justice today, and for an hour or so they're going to be explaining to you what those issues are, because the assault on freedom of the press in the Julian Assange case isn't the only attack that this government is making on civil liberties. So from 9 till 10 there'll be a different campaign talking to you from this stage. At 10 o'clock we'll be reclaiming this stage, and you'll be able to hear updates about what's happening inside the courtroom from people who've been watching the case all through the morning. And then when the court finishes this afternoon, probably about 4:30, we'll be assembling and marching down to Downing Street. So thank you for your persistence. Thank you for turning out on a cold, wet morning. Do stay, do keep protesting. Now, some of you may have seen a particularly fantastic piece of artwork which has dramatised the case of Julian Assange. It's called Anything to Say, and it has the statues of Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning and Edward Snowden on 3 chairs with a 4th spare chair, which is the chair on which, if you have anything to say, you can speak out. And that sculpture has been around the world. It's been in Alexanderplatz in Berlin, it's been on the shores of Lake Geneva, and after 3 attempts we managed to get it in Parliament Square in London last summer. Well, the man who made that, the artist who made that, is Davide Dormino, and he is here to speak to you today. Please give him a warm welcome.
I take on the role of spokesperson for all the artists who have decided to support Julian Assange. Because Assange's story is, yes, linked to freedom of expression as well as our right to know, but also, and above all, another fundamental thought: the impact that our imagination can have on the reality. Assange is imagining a different world from the one presented to us. A word to be correct, just as the artists do with social roles, is decisive, because the artists, through their different practices, that act as a ropes to show to the world how society works. Assange has shown us another point of view by giving us the chance to develop our critical sense. The only weapon we have to defend ourselves against barbarians. And we understood that. That's why we are here. We are the resistance. We are the resistance. We are the resistance against the barbarians. Free Assange!
Davide, thank you very much. And now, someone who's campaigned relentlessly in favour of Julian Assange. He's part of my union, the National Union of Journalists. Please welcome Tim Dawson.
Good morning, thank you. I wonder if you'd indulge me for a moment. I'd like to talk about someone other than Julian Assange. There aren't many reporters who have covered this case from the court every single day of the hearing. I am one of them, and another is James Dolman, who worked for a small NGO called Bridges to Media Freedom. And when I took my very uncomfortable seat in the press bench yesterday, James, for the first time, wasn't beside me, because he lost a decade-long fight against cancer in October and will be reporting no more. So I wanted to pay tribute to someone who I consider to be one of the finest journalists who's covered this case, and whose coverage I would recommend to anybody who wants to understand the detail of what has happened up until now. But reflecting on the fact that during these protests, during these events that so many of us have been to now over years, our lives are moving on, our lives are changing, and while clearly the sacrifice made by Julian Assange languishing in Belmarsh is by some margin the greater, we too are out here on rainy days, on cold days. We too are spending time away from our families, away from our friends, to try and defend civil liberties as we all are. And I know on a day like today, that's not an easy thing to do, and it's easy to think why, when our friends roll their eyes and say, but you've been on so many Julian Assange demonstrations, why is another one necessary? And reflecting on this, I thought about some of the others who have spent long periods in jail. The Alfred Dreyfuses, the Nelson Mandelas, the Birmingham Sixers. And I found myself thinking, the thing about their cases is, their names resonate decades, centuries after they were in prison, because the achievements that they made, either during their lifetimes or by their example, have benefited humanity for decades afterwards. And I have no doubt that if not already, the name of Julian Assange will join that distinguished roll call. Of all the arguments we heard in court yesterday, the one that struck me most hard was this. Everybody knows that the front page of the extradition treaty between the United States and the United Kingdom states that one cannot be extradited for political reasons. And we know that the American lawyers have engaged extraordinary sophistry to argue that this shouldn't actually apply. Julian Assange's legal team made a strong case yesterday that if we allow this to happen, it will extinguish a liberty that we have enjoyed for centuries. That protection that people have from extradition for political reasons, no parliamentary debate, no parliamentary decision has been taken to extinguish that liberty. We will be doing so, we will all be losing that liberty simply for the convenience of the American administration. So when we ask ourselves, why are we here in the rain? Why are we here in the cold? I say to you, it's because we want to defend those civil liberties. We want to defend press freedom, and we want to see the freedom of Julian Assange. Join me, free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free!
Support for Julian Assange. Now we're going to hand over the platform now to, as I said, to the campaign to defend juries. So they'll be taking over from 9 till 10. We'll be back at 10 o'clock. But before I go, let's just hear what we want the judges to know very, very clearly today before they come to a decision. And the decision has got to be that there won't be that there will be no extradition. So there's only one decision: no extradition. Only one decision: no extradition. Only one decision: no extradition. Okay, wave your umbrellas in the air for Julian Assange. See you back here in an hour.
Being tried by people who do not share their social status or political standing. We are also here because we genuinely believe in breaking the groupthink that makes us not want to acknowledge what we see before our eyes, what we intuitively know. And so I'm just going to finish by saying you are doing a great service for humanity by being here and standing up for those who are oppressed, for those who are silenced, for Julian Assange, who is a journalist, a political prisoner held in the heart of London while we talk about repressive regimes overseas. My solidarity personally to the people of Gaza who are who are suffering a genocide, and to all people around the world who are oppressed. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. Next up, we've got Tim Crossland, who is the founder of Plan B, and also my colleague at Defend Our Juries.
Thank you, Lex, and thank you so much, all you truth seekers and Democrats who are here today. I wasn't meant to be speaking today. The platform now was meant to be with Palestine Action, courageous people who are taking action against genocide and being prosecuted for it. They couldn't be here today because their bail conditions meant they would have been imprisoned had they been here. And I cannot speak for them. What I can say is we all know that good information is the lifeblood of democracy. And the silencing of good information and truth is its death. And if the rule of law means anything at all, it means that nobody is above the law and we hold the powerful to account for their crimes. And if that's not what's happening, we do not have the rule of law at all. So let's take a look. The bankers, whose wild speculation brought our country to a point where those in power used it as a pretext to destroy our public services, were they prosecuted? Where was the rule of law then? Those who took us to illegal war, killing hundreds of thousands of innocent people, were they prosecuted? Where was the rule of law then? And the water companies illegally filling our waters with sewage, have they been prosecuted? No! And the fossil fuel companies who've lied to the public for decades and decades while destroying so much life on Earth, so many regions of the world, have they been prosecuted? No! The people being prosecuted are the people who are stepping up because of the failure of the rule of law to hold those in power to account. The people who have no option but to take action because the rule of law is not working. And when they expose those crimes, as Julian Assange has done, as Palestine Action have done, as all the truth seekers have done today, well, first they're being prosecuted, and now today, in here, the Attorney General is saying they don't even have a right to defend themselves. The rule of law is in crisis. It's time to reclaim the courts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. Next up, we've got Dr. Gail Bradbrook, co-founder of Extinction Rebellion. Gail, can you tell us what happened at Isleworth Crown Court when you tried to use the defence belief in consent?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I didn't try to use the defence of consent. I simply tried to make the argument that I should be able to tell a jury of my peers my motivation and my rationale for breaking one pane of glass at the Department for Transport. Because all of the rulings that say we can't use defences in law that come from this place tell us the reason why we don't need to do civil disobedience is because we have a functional democracy. And I said, I think that's a circular argument of power. Of course we don't have a functional democracy. We wouldn't be taking the planet over a cliff edge and all of us with it. So first of all, I made a Defend Our Juries argument. I just want to give my rationale to the jury. That was refused. And then I was told that I was going to be imprisoned if I attempted to talk about climate change. And so he said we would try and run this consent defence, which I knew I had all along. And in fact, that was refused as well. He threatened 4 times to jail me, and he threatened to try me without a jury. I went with this bag, actually, and said, he said to me, are you going to comply with the rulings? I said, you have to do what you have to do, and I have to do what I have to do. And he never followed through on his threats. But what he did do was to refuse any defences in law, and he instructed the jury, you will find her guilty. He left them without any sense of choice. So what's clear to me is that we really have to move towards making our own justice, and I'd really be glad to hear from my sister Esther Stamper-Jose describing what that's going to look like. We cannot look to these bastions of power for any sense of justice. And so I want to finish by saying that I feel such a deep and strong alignment with my brother Julian Assange today, because if he's extradited, he will also not be able to explain to a jury his motivation, why it was in the public interest, and the context for his action. That's what he's facing in extradition. It clearly cannot be justice to be served. So I want to finish by standing in deep, deep solidarity with our brother Julian Assange and shout, "Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange!" Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail. Next up, we've got Sid Saunders, who actually coined this belief in consent. Can you explain a little bit about this defence?
Well, I'm going to do that now. I was the first one to run it, really, in this context, so it felt like a really big deal at the time. I believe the people of Shell would have given me permission to do the action. I remember rocking up to the court and everyone was saying, "Sid, you can't say that." The context is an XR action where we had redecorated the Shell headquarters. Then the judge and the Crown prosecution barristers actually laughed in my face for a moment before composing their features back to their courtroom identities. We, the Shell 7, had come to Southwark Crown Court for our mention or pre-trial hearing. Our judge wanted to hear of our intended defences, as we were all self-representing, not using barristers. Leading up to our trial, my co-defendants were unsure of how the jury, our jury, would respond to my belief of consent. I knew in my heart I wished to state my truth to the courtroom. I believe the people of Shell would have given me permission to do the action. How did I come to this belief? Deeply knowing and feeling my truth. Acting on this truth and then expressing my truth. It starts with feeling the truth, the deep truth that we are all in this together. We are all in our same humanity. We all want to be free from suffering, regardless of whether you are on top of or inside the Shell headquarters, and then acting and expressing that truth. For us Shell 7, we utilise the Shell headquarters as a massive billboard to spell out our messaging in front of the world's news media. It was the most effective and impactful action we could undertake at that moment, and also acting and expressing truth to power with my evidence in the courtroom that I believe the people of Shell would have given me permission to do the action. In the court, I argued that some of the people of Shell would know of the immense danger and destruction of ecocide and climate change, and would want to, as much as possible, stop it. Some of the people of Shell would not know, and therefore would be forever grateful to be warned as effectively as possible, so as not to continue with the destruction and danger, or to have to feel the crushing guilt of having played a direct role in the causes of so much suffering. And some of the people of Shell might know, but are desperately trying to ignore it. These people, one minute, are suffering greatly in avoidance and want this suffering to end. So, The agenda today is also to permanently separate out humanity from corporate and government interests. This government would have our laws changed to make us be only adversaries, to be a divided people, only on one side of an intellectual place or another within a court hearing, who in a court could no longer defend our common human rights or needs, regardless of those being destroyed by a corporation or organisation. As some of those people were not part of or not part of the organisation or corporation. This government is frightened by our common humanity being understood by juries and being discussed by defendants in their defence for believing in the ultimate truth, that we all want to be free from suffering. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sid. Next up, we've got the amazing, incredible Valerie Brown. Valerie has stood trial 3 times before a jury in 2023, and each time she was acquitted. Valerie, can you please tell us about your experience with jury trials and what it means for democracy?
I hope you can all hear me. I was thinking that I'm from Ghana in West Africa, and I know that traditionally disputes are decided on, judged by a chief or members of the elder community. They listen to both sides of the story. That is the way you make a decision and the correct judgment. I'm a great believer in the power, the common sense, the good judgment, the moral standing of ordinary people. And that's what a jury is. These trials that I've been in, I am so honored to have had time, many weeks. I was on trial for 13 weeks last year on 3 different, I'd say, offenses. And we had time to talk to the jury. 2 of the trials, the judges gave us belief and consent. It gave us free rein to talk about why we did actions which appear to be criminal. At the end of these trials, the juries were moved to tears. Not all, but a lot of them moved to tears. They came outside after the trial and said to us, it was almost a life-changing experience. This is democracy, the chance for ordinary people to have a say in what happens in this world, to correct atrocities that we've been living under for centuries, actually. So here we are now. Thank you all so much. I want to say just one last thing, is that the last trial I was in, I was acquitted, but my other 2 co-defendants were not acquitted. That was Roger Hallam, the great Roger Hallam, the great Large Maxey. They are the ones who should have been free, perhaps not even me. I felt totally devastated by my acquittal and their being found guilty. They were found guilty because we had no defenses. We did not have even the defense that we're here, to fight for. And Roger particularly is a man who's driven by justice to correct injustice. He's not somebody who's there to be charming and dress nicely and smile as I sometimes do. And the jury didn't get it, because what could he say? He was a criminal from the time he walked into that court, and the jury had nothing to base their deliberations on except for all the horrible, incriminating stuff that the prosecution had to say, droning on for weeks on end about what horrible, nasty, evil people we all are. So it was just unfair, because Roger and Large needed to talk. They needed to tell the jury the truth about the climate crisis and why they did the actions that they did. So this is all anyway. It's a bit of a bum note to end on. But anyway, 3 times acquitted, and it's the power of the people, the good sense of the people of this country. And I say thank you very much for the people, not the courts.
Thank you so much, Valerie. And now we have Rose Patterson, the Actions Coordinator for Animal Rising. Rose, one thing for a jury to accept is damage to property when it comes to protecting the life of humans. But what do you think? Would they do the same if it's to protect non-human animals? Why does this defence matter to you in Animal Rising?
Well, thank you so much, Lex. And just in case anyone doesn't know who Animal Rising are, we're a direct action group that focus on the link between animal agriculture and climate change. But yeah, we're here to protect all animals and people and the planet. And yeah, Lex, I guess this is really important because of course it's harder for a jury to understand the need to protest to protect animal life over human life, because as we know in society, people, or all of us, are brought up with the belief that animals are less than or less important than humans, and that's not surprising when we think about the fact that the industries, the animal industries that we're protesting are constantly covering up the fact that they're unethical, they're inhumane, and they're destroying the planet. When a jury walks in to a courtroom, they're walking in with the belief, believing the narrative that animal agriculture can be humane and good for the planet, when in fact we know that it's the exact opposite of that. And I believe that we're a nation of animal lovers. I feel that deep down, people do care about animals, they do care about people and the planet. And I believe that if people did have the information that we have, if they knew what we knew, they would understand the need to protest, to protect animals. The more information, we know that the more information that a jury is given, the more information that we can give them about our motivations, about why this is important, the more likely they are to sympathize with us and to understand why this is so important. But how can we inform them if we're constantly being silenced, having defenses taken away from us? It's not informed choice, it is not an informed decision when a jury doesn't understand our reasoning. It's also harder for them to understand the links between issues that are not so obvious to the public and that have been hidden by these industries. For example, the link between animal agriculture and climate change or food poverty. In Animal Rising, we have 32 people about to go on trial for criminal damage and protest against animal agriculture. And those people are fully aware of the consequences and the risks that they are taking when they took action. However, they deserve a fair trial. When they go to trial, they need to be able to defend themselves. They're facing serious sentencing. Some people may end up going to prison, but at the very least, they need to be able to communicate to the jury why they took action, why they did what they did. And without being able to do that, that is not a fair trial. This is an unjust system. And this is really scary. These are scary times, and I wonder what defences they're going to take away from us next. And it's so important that everyone comes out on rainy, crappy days like this in London to speak up against the state. And the courts need to let us speak out for animals, for people and the planet. And it's, as we know, the most vulnerable are going to suffer the most, and we need to keep fighting. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose. All right, we've got a tiny little interlude with some music just to lighten the mood, but we are keeping in with the theme. We've got Miriam Instone from the HSBC 9, who was acquitted by a jury just last November. Miriam?
Hello, can you hear me? All of you lot, thanks. So I'm going to sing a song that I wrote a few years ago. when the political situation continued to nosedive. I've actually forgotten the name of it, but... Oh, it's called Solidarity Song. So here we are again, dissuaded, disheartened, and downtrodden. For a meter, so they threw us back 500 yards, but do not despair, 'cause it's still there, the unified beating of all of our broken hearts. And one day we'll take what's ours. It's not guaranteed or written in the stars, but we've had a glimpse of how it might feel to be dealt a different deal. One day we'll take what's ours. It's not guaranteed or written in the stars, but we've had a taste of how it might feel to be dealt a different deal. So which way now that the circus has been overrun by the clowns? They will not dance or laugh or joke, to scare all the kids by starving out their towns. And we always rise while they throw back champagne that we subsidize, and we'll fill the gaps that they create. And there will come a time from these chains we will shake and say, one day we'll take what's ours. It's not guaranteed or written in this stars, but we've had a glimpse of how it might feel. One day we'll take what's ours. It's not guaranteed or written in the stars, but we've had a taste of how it might feel to be dealt a different deal. And there was this guy who rose up to meet with the giants, wearing a shirt with no tie. For us all he stood tall, so defiant, and uttered 7 words that are going to change things, 'cause he said it doesn't have to be like this. So we say it doesn't have to be like this. And one day we'll take what is ours. It's not guaranteed or written in the stars, but we've had a glimpse of how it might feel to be dealt a different deal.
Thank you so much. That was very, very cool. We've got Esther Tosse from Stop the Mangamisi campaign. What's your experience of British justice? What does authentically democratic justice look like?
Thank you. Warm Greetings to everyone on this very wet and cold day. So, Maangamizi is a key Swahili term that really speaks to the African heliport. And we say it is the continuum of chattel enslavement, colonization, and neo-colonialism today, and the wider context of imperialism. And so when I think about British justice, I have to put it in the context of the imperial nature of British justice. So there can be no justice for you here when Britain still continues to exercise dominion and hegemony over colonized peoples all across the world. So that is the reason why people like me are here today, to stand in solidarity with you who are resisting the domestic imperialism and colonization of the law that subjugates people's power and people's humanity. I come from a people that have been denied justice for centuries. And when we have institutions of law, so-called, that deny our claim and our right to repair, which is reparations, it means to repair. It doesn't mean money. It means stopping the harm of the way these institutions work to deny justice to people. And it means creating something new. So what does democracy or democratic justice look like for people like me who are part of reparation struggles? It looks like bringing justice to the people. And we can only have that when we delegitimize institutions such as these. The royal courts of whose justice? Whose justice are served in these courts? The justice of the few, the imperial elite who subjugate you. So for us and for any people fighting a struggle, we have to look at whose law, whose framework, and whose justice. And our alternative is to develop people's justice, people's international tribunals, where we become the lawmakers, the law enforcers, and we break those laws that are unjust and no longer serve our humanity and actually end up furthering the colonization not only of our Mother Earth and the atmosphere, but of all life. So in closing, we have to repair the law. The law is damaged, and we can no longer uphold institutions of injustice and illegitimate law. And the more and more we actually legitimize these institutions, is the more and more we become complicit. So I just say to you, continue to rebel and continue to resist for people. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Esther. Next up, we've got Lisa from Women Against Rape. She's going to speak to us.
Hi, I've only got a very short amount of time, but I want you all to know that grassroots women have been supporting Assange since day one. We came out in his support in 2010, and I'm ashamed to say that some women have been used by the state to witch hunt him and rape him and set him up, which lost him a lot of support. But we will not be defeated. He has so much support now. I want to tell you why I'm here speaking about juries. There's been a move by women's organisations and by state organisations, including the Sentencing Council, which recently said that juries should be completely completely removed from rape trials? Absolutely not! We want the juries. It's the organisations who run the courts, the CPS and police who are supposed to provide the evidence, and the judges who undermine most rape cases. And now, finally, many abusers of power in high places, like the police, who do racist assaults, who kill people in custody, are beginning to be prosecuted because juries are now finding them guilty because there's such a huge movement of women who are saying we will not put up with this abuse of power anymore. We are with you. The women are with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Next up, we've got Jonathan Porritt, an environmentalist and a writer. Jonathan, you are the former director of Friends of the Earth, who themselves today have a legal case against our government challenging the net zero strategy. Can you tell us what brings you to this platform with those in resistance to the corporate state today?
Thank you. It does not feel good to be a citizen of a country whose government sets out systematically to deprive people of so many of their rights and freedoms. The right to protest and the right to be heard before a jury who can listen to the evidence, hear expert witnesses, and then make decisions in the way that is true to their own conscience. That does not feel right or good. So today in the High Court here, the Attorney General will be seeking, as you've heard, to withdraw one of the last defences available to defendants. The defence of violence. People already knew what was going on. They could not possibly consent to the ways in which our government continues to act today. It does not feel good or right to be a citizen of a country whose government systematically breaks its own laws in order to conceal the truth about climate change. So Friends of the Earth, Client Earth and the Good Law Project have today got a case in the High Court suggesting that the government yet again is in breach of its own obligations under the Climate Change Act, as they did back in July 2022 when they were found to be in breach of those obligations, particularly as regards the legal carbon budgets. The government then obscured that all over again, came forward with a new net zero strategy, a carbon budget delivery plan, which is equally dishonest, equally obscuring of the truth. We live in a country where our ministers are acting illegally, unaccountably, in ways that are deeply corrupt because of their involvement in the incumbency fossil fuel industries today. And unfortunately, this is going on in so many countries around the world. So today, people are really standing up on each of these three different legal cases for our rights to do what we need to do to protect people today and future generations against the massive damage which will be inflicted on millions today and billions tomorrow from the impacts of climate change. That is what we have to stand up for. These freedoms are all about making certain that people in the future can come forward in causes like this and protect those rights for all generations. I feel really proud to be sharing a platform here today with so many amazing people and so many people here speaking up in favour of Julian Assange. For me, this is a critical test of our rights as a citizen. We all now stand in solidarity. We must all now stand in civil disobedience until such time as our government finds its right path. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next up, we've got Susan Reid, a beautiful woman acquitted by a jury during the HSBC 9 trial. what it meant to explain the jury your motivations and your beliefs.
Thank you. I'm a grandma from Lancashire. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm a grandma from Lancashire, and I can't walk lightly through this life knowing of the atrocities that are happening and not doing anything. So, along with 8 other caring humans, I went along to HSBC and very, very carefully cracked some glass, because this is an emergency, and glass gets cracked in emergencies every day. When we arrived in court 2 years later, we were able to explain to the jury what those atrocities were, and we used the belief of consent. Just a quick analogy on the belief in consent. If we were walking down the road and we saw a house on fire and there were children in that house, we would instinctively break those windows and rescue those children. We wouldn't wait to see who owned the building to ask for their consent to break the windows. We would believe that the owner of that building would consent to those windows being broken. And it's exactly the same that we did at HSBC. And when we spoke of those atrocities to the jury, when the jury were allowed to hear why we believed the owners of the building would consent, the atrocities they had to listen to day after day after day. 20,000 children every single day are displaced. 20,000 children who will never go back to their homes, will never go back to the schools. They've had to pick up their belongings and start walking, not knowing where they're going. Well, as I said, I can't walk lightly through the world knowing these things are happening. 12-year-old girls, as young as 12-year-old girls, are being sold into marriages to much older men to stop families going into food poverty. Children are being exchanged for cattle to stop people going into food poverty. The jury heard atrocity after atrocity. And when they came to deliver a just and fair verdict, they did, and they found us not guilty, because we're not guilty. The guilty are the people who are in power. Thank you. Okay. I just want to say that if we lose this belief in defence, we're on the very, very slippery slope into fascism and dictatorship, and we're not going to allow that to happen.
Thank you, Susan. Next up, we've got Kathy Eastburn, who was also acquitted last year on the basis of belief in consent, after an action she took part of at the Treasury. Kathy, the Attorney General says that the defence consent shouldn't be available to protesters. What do you say about that? What was your experience last year?
Thank you, Nick, and thank you everyone for being here today. It's really lovely to see you. I'm an ordinary person doing what I can at this time to try and prevent horrific harm happening to my 2 daughters and to young people everywhere. I'm not a criminal. The actions I take are not only morally right, but lawful, as they are reasonable, proportionate and necessary. In October 2019, I helped to spray fake blood over the UK Treasury from a fire engine in order to spotlight and thereby get stopped the activities of a department there called UK Export Finance. At that time, they were using taxpayers' money to fund new fossil fuel projects in other countries, which was incompatible with the UK's climate commitments, not to mention causing huge harm and loss of life in communities around the world. A parliamentary report in June 2019 had pointed out all of that, yet no one had taken any notice. We were arrested and later charged with conspiracy to cause criminal damage, a serious crime. 4 years later, in late 2023, our month-long Crown Court trial finally happened. Most of our legal defences, necessity, prevention of crime, protection of property, were ruled out by our judge. He justified doing this based on ill-founded and no longer appropriate case law. He did, however, allow us one defence, belief in consent. This defence allows for cases where people cause damage in order to save life or prevent significant harm. For example, breaking down the door on a burning house in order to save people inside. The defence is that you genuinely believed at the time that whoever could have consented to the damage would have consented if they had known the full circumstances. Once I got my head around that, it actually made a lot of sense, as it was the truth. I genuinely believe that anyone working at the Treasury, if they had properly known the full circumstances, would have consented to a relatively tiny amount of damage in comparison to the massive harm caused by the projects they were funding. I believe this as I believe Treasury officials are, like most people, decent people who would never knowingly cause such harm and would want it to stop. Once the jury heard the evidence, they understood all this and they acquitted us. The government, of course, hates all this. They hate powerful, non-violent direct action that disrupts business as usual, even while business as usual is destroying itself and taking us all down with it. With their new laws, they want to squash anyone who dares to try and stop this deadly machine. Their attempt today to remove the consent defence from so-called climate protesters is their latest truth and life-suppressing move. Not only is it wrong in that it further stifles the peaceful dissent that is essential to any functioning democracy, but it is legally wrong. To call what we do protest, or as they like to say, expressing our strongly held views, is incorrect. What we do is non-violent direct action to try and stop massive harm. As David Graeber might have said, protest is like begging the people in power to put out the fire. Direct action is like trying to put out the fire ourselves and them trying to stop us. We must all remember not to use the word protest. These are the kinds of falsehoods that the government lawyers are using here today in order to try and win this case. I hope that judges today can think clearly and be sensible enough to rule against this, but I'm not optimistic. I've sat through so many trials and court hearings and witnessed so many shocking rulings being made by judges, not only in denial of basic morality, but in denial of reality, the laws of physics, and their own humanity. I welcome the People's Assembly happening here today. It's like bringing the jury, it's bringing common sense into the building, like my jury did at my trial. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you inside later. Free Julian Assange.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Now we've got Trudy Warner, who held what is arguably the most influential sign in British history outside Inner London Crown Court just last year. Trudy, can you tell us what you observed a particular judge? What was he doing to the juries? What did you think about that, and what did you do?
Well, I was watching various trials, and there was a pattern emerging of a judge who was denying
defendants the opportunity to talk about their motivation. And these were really deeply principled, thoughtful people who had very strong beliefs, or very strong, the word belief is wrong, but, and I actually felt that to have a trial where defendants can't talk about their motivation and put their actions in context, I thought that that was an insult to the jurors, I thought it was an insult to the defendants, and I think it's an insult to justice. And I was aware of the plaque in the Old Bailey which says that jurors have a right to acquit according to their conscience. And I thought that is an established legal right which has been a principle of our justice system since 1670. And that right, maybe jurors actually don't know about that right, and they need to know about it. So all I simply did was went home, wrote those words on a placard, stood silently with the placard alone on the pavement, for which I was arrested. I was then taken to the Old Bailey, the Central Criminal Court, and I now have a hearing at the High Court. Now this, to me, is the stuff of fiction. This is Kafka, this is Orwell, this is Russia, this is China. This is not the UK. Except that it is the UK, it's happening now, it's happening to a very ordinary person like me. I'm a retired social worker, and a year ago I would not have stood on a platform like this and spoken to this kind of a crowd. I was said it was completely impossible for me to do it, but the Attorney General has brought me here. So, thank you very much. We have a triple bill of tyranny here today, and I hope that we can hold these courts to account. They are our courts.
Thank you, Trudy. So Trudy was what started Defend Our Juries. Her powerful stance against the injustice of judicial overreach. And now we've got Dr. Clive Dolphin, a Defend Our Juries spokesperson. So can you give us some context of what's happening today and why should the public care about this?
Dolphin, I'm a spokesperson for Defend Our Juries. Before I tell you why today is really important, I'm just going to give you a little bit of context, a personal story. So, my parents were invited to come across to Britain to help Britain rebuild after the end of the Second World War. So they and a whole pile of people from the West Indies came across here. My father was a skilled person in the car industry. My mother was a social worker. And just about the time when they were starting to settle into their retirement, we started to hear some disturbing stories. We started to hear about people who've been told, "You're not British." And people were saying, "Well, what?" And then we said, "Well, if you don't believe I'm British, you have to prove that, because in Britain, you have to prove it. I'm innocent until you have proved that I'm guilty." And they said, "No, that doesn't apply to you. You have to prove that you are British." So then people said, "Well, I've got a birth certificate, I've got a passport." There's one person who spent decades in the British Army. He said, "I've got my medals, I've got my war record." And the Home Office said, "No, actually, we're the experts on what it is to be British, so we will decide what the test is." And the courts that my parents had so much faith in, said, Yeah, okay. So then the government said you had to have 2 pieces of documentation for every year that you claim you're in Britain. Not something from a bank, not something from a building society, from the government. There were people writing to schools saying, do you still have my school records? There were people who had parking tickets from the 70s saying, do you still have the letter that you sent me for the parking ticket? So I've known for some time there is a problem with the courts. Why today is so important is because in order for a jury to make a decision about whether someone is innocent or guilty, they need to hear the facts. They need to hear the case. And if you have a defence in law, you get to present your case, you get to present your facts. But if the judge rules that you do not have a defence in law, you can't present your evidence. Your expert witnesses, they can't take the stand. They can't present their evidence. And so if the evidence isn't presented, how are the juries supposed to make a decision? And this is what the courts in conspiracy with the government are trying to do. They don't want the jury to acquit. They've been finding that juries, equipped with all the facts, have looked at it and said, you know what? I believe in what that person's doing. I believe that what they're doing isn't wrong. And so they're trying to corrupt the system, to take away the ability for the jury to hear the evidence. What we have to understand is, once you've done that for one set of trials, you can do it for any set of trials. It applies to all of us. Now, I've heard that just up the road, over there, at the Inner Law Crown Court, Judge Silas Reed has said he's going to delay his case in order to take into account what has happened here in the case that's being heard over here. And I ask you, how can he know that tomorrow there will be a verdict from a case where they haven't even heard the evidence yet? How can he know that? If you don't see something corrupt with that, you really aren't looking. This is why it's important. This is why we're here today. And this is why I'm inviting all of you to follow me, head into the courts, let's hear this evidence, and let's have a good old discussion about it.
Thank you so much, Clive. So we're going to move on to go inside the courts. We're going to listen on to these hearings. We've got Julian Assange's appeal, and we need to get him free, because we need a free press, we need freedom of speech, we need freedom of information. We need to respect jury trials. The jurors need to be respected and given that information and that truth. And then we need a government that respects international law, doesn't lie to us, and keeps and sticks to its own climate change pledges and legislation. Thank you very much.
To hear a few words from. He's a journalist who has written again and again in defence of Julian Assange, has appeared on platform after platform. He writes absolutely magnificently right across the press, but especially for Middle East Eye.
weitermachen können. Das war Drückerei hier.
Waiting in the bay. Apologies, I'm stuck here. Low lies from the Pentagon's steely eyes. They punish those who stand in their way. 'Cause you expose their dirty wars and how they murder for their cause. But we will always stand by.
It's a fantastic crowd I can see from up here. Thank you so much for staying all the way through the morning. I can see the Croydon Trade Union Council banner there. Thanks very much for coming down. Special thanks to the Public and Commercial Services Union Samba Band. Fantastic to see you. Really lifted the morning. Thanks for coming down. They'll be leading the march later on this afternoon. Now, the first speaker I'd want to introduce to you is Gabriel Shipton. That's Julian Assange's brother. He's been following this case. He's been leading the campaigning internationally and especially in Australia. Gabriel, tell us what's been going on this morning.
Hey everyone, thanks again for coming out and braving the weather. Amazing turnout again. It's sort of a bit embarrassing watching the prosecutors in there trying to tell us that day was night and night was day, that Chelsea Manning's not a whistleblower and Julian's not a journalist. They really just brought absolute shame to that court and to the United Kingdom justice system. And this case remains a stain on the US, a stain on the UK. And both governments should be absolutely ashamed of it and what they're doing to press freedom and our rights. Because what was going on in there is the prosecutors telling us that journalism is a threat to democracy. And whistleblowing is a threat to democracy. Our right to know is a threat to democracy. So shame on them and free Julian Assange.
Thanks very much, Gabriel. Now, the next speaker really is a pleasure to introduce. I met him a couple of years back when he was the first Australian MP to come across to Britain to visit Julian Assange in Belmarsh. We met with British parliamentarians at that time. But since that visit, He has been central to the transformation of Australian politics on the question of Julian Assange, campaigning relentlessly until there is not only cross-party support for Julian Assange, but the whole of the Australian Parliament saying what the world knows to be true, and that is enough in the case of Julian Assange. Please give a huge London welcome to Andrew Wilkie MP.
Who remembers collateral murder? Who can forget that grainy black and white image of an American attack helicopter gunning down innocent Iraqis and Reuters journalists? Who can remember that? And we have this madness that the man who told the truth, who provided hard evidence of US war crimes, he's the one in front of a court. It should have been the pilots of that helicopter. But some common sense has broken out. At least now the Australian Parliament has finally voted. The Australian Prime Minister has finally stood up and given a clear, strong signal to the Americans that enough is enough. Regardless of what you think of Julian, this matter must be brought to an end. The extradition must be dropped. The charges must be dropped. He must be busted out of Belmarsh. He must be allowed to be reunited with his family. Because Julian Assange is the hero here, not the villain.
Now, astoundingly, through all this time, despite the imprisonment of Julian Assange, WikiLeaks has continued to do its work. And its editor-in-chief is Christian Harfenson. He's been following this case as well as keeping the reporting alive. Please give him a warm welcome.
It was absolutely amazing to be in the courtroom this morning. I was not in the actual courtroom yesterday, but in a side room where I couldn't hear anything. Now I was in the actual courtroom and I still couldn't hear anything. Well, so at least you're getting closer and you can see the reaction from the two judges and you see the backhead of the lawyer representing the US government. So what was he putting forth there? Absolutely nothing new. It was as we were offered to lunch on a leftover smorgasbord from last month. We've heard it all before, and it's all been refuted, not just in the courtrooms, but with new evidence that was totally disregarded. So they had nothing new to offer, but the old arguments that have been refuted. But what was interesting this morning is that the judges were paying attention and they were asking questions. Is it really true that Julian will not get a First Amendment protection when he is extradited? Etc., etc. At least we have the attention, thanks to you probably. They know that they need to scrutinize this and the arguments put forth. And the arguments were thin. Of course, we shouldn't be here, because it's been disputed everything that the Americans have been putting forth in this case. The day will continue. We will, of course, fight on. There is a glimpse of hope in the courts here. Let's not abandon that. Let's stay on that. Let's stay on the shift, on the watch. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for supporting Julian Assange. Let's free him. Let's free Assange now.
It really is an astounding view from up here. I wish you could all see yourselves. It's a fantastic turnout. I actually think that the crowd today is bigger than we were yesterday. I hope you're all ready to march this afternoon at the end of the court hearing. So stay around and get ready to march later this afternoon. And remember, all that's being asked for here is a full hearing in a high court. There has been no full hearing of the Assange case except in a magistrate's court. Now, a magistrate's court in this country is the lowest court. It's the court that you go to if you have a parking ticket, if you have a speeding fine. That's the level of case that is normally heard in a magistrate's court. They do not and should not be the final judges of the most important civil liberties case of the 21st century. And leading the campaign to make sure that that is not the case, that it is not left to the judgment of a single lowly magistrate, has been Julian Assange's wife, Stella Assange.
Pathetic the US case is. They have to rely on lies. And then the prosecutors say, don't question these lies because that would offend our ally. 14 years on, all they can do is repeat the lies from the very first Pentagon press conference talking points sheet. What they're trying to argue is that state secrets trump revealing state crimes. This is the balance they're trying to shift. They want impunity, they don't want to be scrutinized, and journalism stands in the way. And in that courtroom, they are having to make their position increasingly clear. They have to admit that what they're doing is criminalizing journalism, is criminalizing the truth. They are liars, they are criminals, and they are persecuting the journalist who exposed them. Julian is a truth teller, he is a political prisoner. And the world is watching these courts and how they deal with this case. Please be here and come and march to Downing Street after the proceedings are over this afternoon. Thank you.
Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! And there is now no better person to tell you about why that should be the case than Julian Assange's father, John Shipton.
What a fantastic crowd. Just a few things. Sorry? Just a few things. Julian has spent in one form of incarceration and another, over 14 years. Julian has spent over 14 years in one form of incarceration or another. Are you good with that? No! All of Julian's human rights suspended. Are you good with that? No! Due process abuse after abuse. Are you good with that? No! Over 25 court cases in one form or another for an innocent man, no charges laid. Are you good with that? I just want to thank you all for coming and thank you for your strength and understanding, as I do, that all genius ascends from the people, ascends from us upward. And it is us, in the manifestation of the Australian Parliament, declaring that Julian Assange must be brought home, has shown our courage manifested in the parliamentary declaration. Is that not magnificent? See you this afternoon for the march.
Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Okay folks, now this afternoon, as we've said repeatedly, there's the march. Please stay around from that. I see many friends here who I know have been campaigning, as I have been, to stop the slaughter in Gaza. And many of you have asked me about the timings of the demonstration this evening, where there's going to be a ceasefire vote in the House of Commons. Now that's been moving backwards and forwards all day, but the latest intelligence that I have about that is that the vote will be around 7 o'clock this evening, and the protest will start shortly after we've ended our protest down in Richmond Terrace opposite Downing Street. So if those of you who want to join both, please stay here, march with us, and you should be down in time to join the Palestine protest as well. So we'll be meeting here about 4:30. That's when we expect the judge to call an end to the proceedings. We won't necessarily know the verdict today, although we might. But whatever the case, we are determined to take to the seat of government, to the Prime Minister of this country, the message that we stand for freedom of the press, that we stand for freedom of speech, and that people like him and his counterparts in the United States ought to be the ones who are standing trial and not Julian Assange.
They could rule.
For the worst criminals, free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! No! Thank you. Thank you. the right path of justice. So we are on the right
side of history. We are indebted, and justice that is
What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Just give me some truth.
truth. If wars can be started by lies, peace can begin by truth.
I really wish I could be standing up here joining in the eulogies to a free media and its crucial role as a pillar in our democracies. But I look at the media that we have and I don't see much freedom. Our media is strangled by money, it's hobbled by fear. For most media organisations, access to power is far more important than holding power to account. Careers depend on towing the line. Balance sheets demand a constant churn of stories. Stories which are recycled from official statements, press releases, social media, anywhere but out in the world, anything but upset the status quo. And Nick Davis described this in 2008 as the mass production of ignorance. 14 years later, it's way worse now. So if we want to hold ourselves as the defenders of media freedom, we have to recognise that our mainstream media is anything but free. It's a water carrier for political and corporate power, dedicated to enforcing the demands of global capital. And people like Julian Assange are the exceptions, the ones who pay the price. If we don't accept that, we're on a hiding to nothing.
Fotos, die besten Fotos dann auch.
Blow your horn. That's the gap they're going to be coming out from. Just
in the Las Vegas sign and getting ready to march. So very shortly, get your marching boots ready.
Ich glaube, du musst dann ISO dann kleinstellen. Weil der Laserstream hat ein bisschen langsam.
For the British judicial system, if they don't release Julian very, very, very quickly. Absolutely. I've got no idea. Look, I'm making up Sharon. So that when Stella comes out, you'll probably be able to tell how her face. Because you know, when she comes out, she's got a fracture. So our man in the courtroom the sham in this court today, they're probably having a cup of tea.
demonstration now. I just want to tell you a little bit about one of the banners that you will be marching behind. You will perhaps be able to see the Electricians Trade Union banner at the front. That banner is over 100 years old. It's a heritage of the trade union movement in this country, and the reason that it's here today is because the last time it was outside this building, the last time it was outside the Royal Courts of Justice, it was because Ricky Tomlinson and Des Warren, the Shrewsbury Two, had come out and were convicted and sent to jail for being pickets in an industrial dispute. Eventually, their case, after more than 40 years, was quashed and they were proven innocent. Although while he was in prison, Des Warren resisted the prison regime, was repeatedly injected with a liquid cosh, and suffered and died later of Parkinson's disease, partly induced by his treatment in prison. And the reason that's important is because it reminds us that the struggle for justice is long. But even no matter how long and hard you fight, eventually you can win. As the Shrewsbury pickets have their convictions quashed, we are determined that it will not take that long for justice for Julian Assange. Behind the banners, behind the Samba band. Very shortly, when Stella Assange and the others come out of court, we'll be ready to march. So take the road now, line up, get ready to march.
Thank you, John, for listening. We'll probably wait for Stella. Stella comes out. We will give her a rapturous round of applause for free good, etc.
Which pen? You got some?
Thank you very much. Is that all? To be among we are the court of public opinion.
Yeah, no, it's a good band. It's got metal ring.
5 years in the British history. It's a sham. Maybe they will listen to us today. So thank you for having made your answer. So much. So when Stella comes out, we'll give her a rapturous applause and then we'll march to that. Thank you.
Hey, folks, we'll be living outside His Majesty's Prison Belmarsh. That's the line. And the police, under the direction of the Royal Borough Labour Party Council, yes, that's the same party, but it's the two military defeats in Afghanistan and Iraq. Once a bunch of Afghan hillbillies that have a handful of taking. And so, I think wherever Julian Assange is, there should be a 24/7 vigil. I shouldn't be the only one doing it. I'm going to go back to Australia because my mum is poor health. If you want to support that vigil, and I spent 5 months under Julian's window at the Ecuadorian Embassy, and they took him 7 hours after I left for the first time to get a passport in Dublin. I'm banned from Australia House over there. And so we can have a roster system. We've developed a strong support network in Woolwich, and I can do a handover to people before I split to see my mum. Okay, if you're interested in that, see me later. Thank you. And we need to be beseeching King Charles III to exercise his royal prerogative to release Julian Assange, because Sunak is a clown taking his orders from DC like Albanese. And Queen Elizabeth exercised her royal prerogative to release Marion Price after a friend wrote to her. And if you write to King Charles III beseeching him to exercise his royal prerogative, his PA will write back. So spread that word. Thank you. before I became a journalist, inspired by what he did. I think it's about 2 years ago, I happened to be covering a case down near Westminster, outside Scotland Yard, and I bumped into Keir Starmer. So I asked Keir Starmer, I took the opportunity, I said, why did you go after Julian Assange? Why did you persecute a journalist? I think I may be the only journalist in the country who's actually asked that question of the so-called leader of the opposition. Do you know what he said? Nothing! I am on trial for being beaten up by these corrupt criminals over here outside the Muslim Parliament. Over the lockdowns, I've witnessed journalists be assaulted, brutalised, threatened, and shadow banned, intimidated, put through a trial of ordeal. It is clear there is no such thing as free speech within this country. But we have to remember that free speech is our natural right. It's not a right given by government. It is a right that we get from nature. And that's recognised in our Magna Carta. The Americans laid it out in their constitution. If only our governments would live up to it. I'm very concerned, Keir Starmer, when you look at Labour in the polls. This man, with his complicity, may become the next Prime Minister. So, without my journalist hat on, I would like you to do everything you can to not just smash Labour and make sure they're defeated at the next election, but to destroy the entire uniparty system. Thank you very much.
Are you ready to march? Are you ready to march to free Julian Assange? Are you ready to march for a free press? Are you ready to march for freedom of speech? We're just getting the people onto the front banner now. There's going to be statements from a stage like this at Downing Street. We want to be as close to the MPs, as close to the Prime Minister as we can when we say, free Assange now, free Assange now.
Free Assange.
Get ready to march. There's only one decision. There's only one decision. There's only one decision.
We going then? Oh, the grand.
Stella Assange, John Shipton and Gabriel Shipton are on the front banner of this demonstration. It's followed by the PCS Samba Band. It's followed by the trade union banner of the ETU. Are you ready to march with them? We will be marching in 10, 9, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. March now! Welcome to Downing Street. Free Assange. Can the demonstration move on to the side here? Demonstration, move to your left. Move to your left onto the area here. You move to your left onto the area here. Just move to the left onto the area here, that'd be great. Move to the left, please. Can see the ETU banner there. Thanks for coming. Move on to the pavement. Croydon Trades Council banner. Move on to the pavement. Thanks very much. Guys, follow these banners. See the big banner with Julian Assange's face? Just follow that banner onto the side here. Just follow the EPPU banner onto the side here. The Samba Band, thank you very much. Just move on to the pavement here. Brilliant work. The Samba Band, move on to the pavement. That'd be great. Just move to your left. That'd be fantastic. That was fantastic. Thank you so much to the PCS Samba Band.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much for all your support. Free Assange! Free Assange! Free Assange! Free Assange! And now I want to introduce our first speaker this evening, Richard Medhurst. He's been going through the work of the Assange campaign. He's been reporting on the trials. Do you read his account of what's been happening in court? Richard?
Thanks very much. Look at you! Look at all of you! Look at all of you! Wonderful. You know, I got to admit, I'm kind of sick and tired. I've been sitting all day listening to the CIA argue why, you know, Assange is a criminal and exposing war crimes is apparently a criminal offense. How boring and disgusting that they come into our courtrooms and tell us, you know, that they want to give Julian Assange a walloping. They want to prosecute him with US laws, but no protections under US laws. So you can try him with the Extradition Act, with the Espionage Act, but he gets no First Amendment protections. What kind of rubbish is that? What kind of rubbish is that? You need to understand something. A lot of you are holding Palestine flags, and it makes me very happy to see, because these two things are not disconnected. They are connected. The same people that are prosecuting Assange are the same people bombing Gaza. You need to understand that. These are the same corporations, the same banks, the same arms dealers that put Julian Assange in jail. They're the same people that killed 130 journalists in Gaza. This is a war on journalism. And it's not just against Julian, it's against the people covering the case as well. They make it impossible to get in the courtroom. They make it impossible to hear what's going on. How the hell do they have £1 million per missile to shoot down Yemeni drones, but they can't fix the microphones in the bloody courtroom? What the hell is that? Are you serious? Wow, what is this? They really want us to believe they can't fund the NHS, they can't fix the transport, all this crumbling where they got time to go make wars and kill people? Rubbish! Rubbish! Absolute rubbish. You need to understand something as well. This case, this is a violation of UK sovereignty. The Americans have no business coming here. The extradition treaty says you cannot take someone to the United States. That is what the law says. You cannot send someone to the United States for a political offense. You can't do it. And they're playing a double game here. They think that, you know, we're just going to okay this. No, you guys coming out here, this is an act of resistance. You being here, you raising your voice, you coming out with the drums, you know, chanting, that's an act of resistance. And when Julian Assange was being taken out of the embassy, he said, resist. He said, UK resist. So he asks that of you guys. Do you understand? You have to keep resisting. You have to make your voices heard, because that's the one thing that they do not have. They don't have numbers. Yeah, they've got money, they've got bonds, they don't have numbers and power. Do you understand? They have no power in numbers. That belongs to all of you. So you have to keep coming out, you have to keep showing your support for Julian and keep showing your support for Palestine. Free, free Julian Assange! Free, free Julian Assange! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to introduce the next speaker, Ben Westwood. Vivienne Westwood is a fantastic campaigner for this cause. Ben is a fantastic campaigner for this cause. Please give him a warm welcome.
Hello there. Yeah, exactly. My name is Ben Westwood. Unfortunately, my mother Vivienne is not here today. She was a close friend to Julian Assange and a long-term campaigner for a free press and against his extradition to the United States for the crime of revealing American war crimes. which included torturing prisoners of war and shooting unarmed civilians, not to mention revealing that the CIA can spy on you through your TV and smartphones. Julian is a lovely man. I've met him. He's a human being, revealing the truth for us all. He is a real hero. Julian has been in Belmarsh maximum security prison for nearly 5 years now, and he got married to his partner Stella Assange there. But Julian wasn't allowed to be shown in his Vivienne Westwood kilt, wedding kilt, because you could see his painfully thin legs brought about by his treatment, which UN Special Rapporteur Niels Mesler has described as torture. Unfortunately, this issue is not just about the injustice perpetrated to Julian. This is about our collective democratic right to real facts and truth. In a true democracy, the people need unrestricted access to facts and information in order to make informed choices. As Julian has said, the aim of war is not to win it, it's to have a never-ending war. War is a great way to launder the public's money into private hands and to maintain sources of cheap natural resources and cheap human labour for the profit god. Afghanistan and Iraq were great successes for them, and now it's Ukraine, Gaza, and the next project, China. Loads of money rolling in, not to mention for the Western contractors awarded the contracts to repair the damage caused. The fact that Julian is being charged with the crime of espionage is very telling. During times of war, public information can be restricted. Are we at war? The US has been conducting one war after another continuously since the end of the Second World War. Now they are trying to step into our country's law. If this appeal fails, America can disregard the laws of any other countries. Why is our government disregarding our own laws to suit America? What happened to Magna Carta? What happened to habeas corpus? Now I feel even more disgusted to be British. What are you doing to our country? A friend of my mother coined an acronym, a pill called NINSPIL, a pacifier used to control the world's populations. It stands for National Idolatry, Non-Stop Distraction, Organised Lying. The mainstream press is controlled and lies by omission and misinformation. They just don't do reports on something that is being hidden, as in Julian's case. When they do report, it has a bias. Now you hardly hear about the war in Ukraine. All the men there with no arms and legs for the rest of their lives. Gaza is just a background story now. All those people buried under the rubble. War journalism is strictly under control these days. No war photographers like Don McCullin allowed to take photos on the front line anymore. They learnt that in Vietnam. The case against Assange is the final end of the pretext that democracy exists. If he is convicted, it is the beginning of darkness for us all. The attack on Julian Assange is also an attack on us. Next time this could be you.
Yes! Thank you!
Thanks very much. Now listen, we need you all to be safe, so there's plenty of room over this side. Can you all move to your left so that people can come out of the road and be safely onto the pavement? If you just move over, please. Thanks very much. I can see you moving. Please do that. Come on to the pavement, guys. It's night time. It's Whitehall. We want you to be safe. Come on over this side. That's not really within my power just at the moment, although it's a good sentiment. Okay. Now I'm sure that you've all been waiting to hear from Stella Assange about her impressions, both about what's happened in the court and about what we should do next. So please do give her a very warm welcome. She's been through the hell of that court case for the last two days, and she wants to be with you here tonight. Stella Assange.
Wow, you guys are amazing. Not just the turnout this evening coming here to Downing Street, but also over the past 48 hours. It's been incredible. Every time I got to court, I was greeted by this incredible supportive crowd that was cheering us on, and I told Julian all about how much support he has, and also how much attention the media has given this case this time around. The world is watching. And finally, there's a realization about what this is really about, which is an attack on the truth, an attack on the public's right to know, and a country's attempt to further their impunity and their cover-ups and continue to kill with impunity without the threat of a media that will scrutinize them, of a public that will demand change. That cannot stand. Everything turns on the outcome of this case. Whether states can criminalize journalism and put journalists in prison like they've been doing in the UK with an Australian citizen, a publisher who's won many, many awards for his journalism, and they've stuck him in the deepest, darkest hole of the UK prison system, and the US threatens to put him in the deepest, darkest hole of the US prison system for 175 years. Shame.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
Julian's imprisonment is the result of people with too much power who lost the plot, who got power thirsty and are guilty. They know they're guilty and they want to continue to live their lives without any consequences for the crimes they've committed. This case is about whether state crimes can continue unpunished, unscrutinized. Julian's freedom is the only antidote. We don't have a decision today. Julian's life is at severe risk every single day he is in prison. He is a political prisoner. He is the world's most famous political prisoner. We know what happened to the other most famous political prisoner last week. That cannot happen to Julian. It cannot be allowed to happen. The world is watching. Julian has to be freed. Now, whatever happens in the coming days, we can't know, but we can know that we will be there for Julian and be there for our own democracy, our own future, our own ability to change policy, to change decisions, to change governments. Because if there's no scrutiny, we can't be informed. We can't be able to change, make an informed decision about who we elect. Our rights are at stake, but Julian's life is at stake. If he is extradited, he will lose his life. He will be killed. He will be killed by the country that has been plotting his assassination. And the court heard how the United States, under the previous administration, which may be the next administration, had plotted to assassinate him, who had plotted to poison him, who had plotted to kidnap him, who had plotted to rendition him. Shame. Shame on those who put journalists in prison. Shame on those who murder journalists. Shame on those who are afraid of the truth. That's not a society I want to live in. We're better than that.
Free Julian Assange now!
UK courts are also under scrutiny. They have heard about the murder plots against my husband. They are on notice that the country that is trying to extradite him has planned to murder him. They don't deny it. They just change the subject. The whole time we were in court, the other side somehow avoided to talk about what the documents Julian published revealed. They didn't talk about the war crimes. They didn't talk about the 15,000 civilian killings in Iraq that were revealed. They didn't talk about their torture and rendition program. They didn't talk about Guantanamo Bay. They simply changed the subject. Shame. This case is brought by criminals who want to maintain their impunity, who want to avoid the courts. They are the fugitives from justice, not Julian. Julian is justice. He is transparency. He is us. He is the public. And as long as Julian remains in prison, we're all in prison. And they are free. It cannot be.
Free Assange!
Free Assange!
Free Assange!
Be there for Julian. He would be there for you. He is there for you. He needs to be free.
Free Assange!
Free Assange!
Free Assange! Free Assange!
Free Assange! Free Assange!
And my next speaker has observed many of these hearings in the Assange case. For Reporters Without Borders, please give a warm welcome for Rebecca Vincent.
In these past 2 days, we have heard nothing new from the US government. We have heard them double down on the same arguments that they've been making for 13 years, and in particular since the superseding indictment was issued. Again, we're seeing attempts to make exceptions for Julian Assange. Why his human rights don't matter. Why normal protections for journalists don't matter. We've heard this before. We heard how even though they knew his state of mental health, they knew his risk of suicide, how, oh no, it would be okay, send him here anyways. Now we're seeing that in an attempt to distance the journalistic community from him and all of us. But let me be very clear, this case is about journalism. It is about press freedom. If they make an exception of Julian Assange, the rule will be broken, and no one, no journalist, no publisher, no journalistic source, no media organization can ever be confident that their rights will be respected again. We will see an immediate and distinct chilling effect, in particular on national security reporting. This is absolutely about journalism. We are deeply concerned for Julian Assange's current situation. This is the first time he was granted permission to attend court in 3 years. So the fact that he wasn't there speaks volumes about his current situation. The fact that he couldn't even attend online tells us how he's feeling. I saw him myself in prison a few weeks ago with a broken rib, in pain, and coughing a lot from a respiratory illness. So we're concerned about his physical health as well as his mental health. So while this case is being decided in these courts, and while the strings are being pulled 4,000 miles away in Washington, D.C., this man is in a prison cell tonight, a few miles from us here. We must remember him. We must not let his situation deteriorate further. So we still hope that at this late stage, there can be some justice delivered from the British system. The world is watching. And if not here, then Strasbourg. And it is imperative that if these courts fail to protect journalism and press freedom by protecting Julian Assange, it is imperative that his right to appeal to the European Court of Human Rights is respected, that the UK abides by its European Convention obligations, and that no move is made to extradite him whilst that process is ongoing. It is essential. If this country is going to stand for the rule of law, they must abide by their international obligations. And we are here at Downing Street. This is still within the UK's power to do the right thing, but let's not let Washington off the hook. I hope they're watching from across the ocean as well. This is a political case, and if justice isn't possible here in the British courts, our call still remains on the Biden administration to drop these charges, to close this case. A political solution could be found. It is a question of political will. So let's not let them off the hook either. Our call remains to free Assange. And there is only one decision: no extradition.
No extradition!
Thank you, Rebecca. I know there's no one who's reported as effectively, has campaigned as effectively for Julian Assange as Craig Murray.
Thank you, everyone. It's absolutely wonderful to see you all. And I want to start off by thanking you from the bottom of our hearts, all of you who have stood out in the cold and the rain this last 2 days to support Julian Assange. It's been a really, really fantastic effort. Thank you. And we are a community that shows the sort of democracy that Julian dreams of, where freedom of information empowers people and puts power back from the hands of the politicians into the hands of the people. And I see here people I have been seeing for more than 10 years, people who I saw standing in the cold and the wet outside the Ecuadorian embassy, people I saw day in, day night who have been campaigning. And it has not been without effect. We have turned around public opinion on Julian Assange and on this case. And we have done that to the extent that the establishment now have to listen. And yesterday and today in the court, I sat there in the courtroom. I wish you could all have been there, because firstly, Julian's legal team did a fantastic job. And secondly, I saw something I would not have said in 5 years of these legal processes. For the first time, I saw judges who were actually listening intelligently and paying attention to what the defense says. And we have done that. We have done that because they can no longer ignore us. They can no longer scorn us. And we heard, in a UK court, we heard Julian's defense outline the war crimes of the United States. We heard lawyers, eminent KCs, speak to the bench and talk of massacre, and talk of torture, and talk of drone killings, and talk of killings of journalists, and talk of systematic war crimes committed by the United States and its allies, and what Julian has done to expose that. You know, yesterday in the United Nations, the United States vetoed a ceasefire resolution on Gaza, and the United Kingdom, as its cowardly little henchman, abstained alongside it. And we are fighting the same thing. We have here the United States trying to destroy Julian Assange, and the United Kingdom as its cowardly little henchman, keeping him in Belmarsh jail. We will not stand for it. This will not last. It is essential to the freedom of all of us that Julian is released, because he stands for freedom of information and for the right of people to know what governments are secretly doing in their name and with their resources. We are fighting a noble battle, and it is a battle which is turning, and a battle which will win, and it's a battle fundamentally for the very kind of society we wish to live in. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Craig. And now, for the last speech of this evening, very pleased to welcome back to the podium the organiser of the Free Assange campaign in the United States, Vince DiStefano.
Thank you, John. Brothers and sisters, I stand before you in shame for the government that represents me. I wish to quote the words of President Joe Biden stated on May 3rd, World Press Freedom Day. Journalists, uncover the truth. Check the abuse of power. Demand transparency from those in power. They are indispensable to the functioning of democracy. He and his administration go forward and say that journalism is not a crime. Those words are ashes in their mouth. The utter hypocrisy of my government shines in that courtroom. And it is incumbent upon us, all of us, to say no to the hegemony of the United States, say no to the Biden administration, and say yes to the freedom of journalists and journalism around the world. Julian must be free! Free Assange! Free Assange! Free Assange now! Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for demonstrating for the last 2 days. You've been outside that court for 2 days. You've done absolutely brilliantly. And nothing that we say from this platform is as important as you being there. Every speaker on this platform is simply a mirror for the protesters and the demonstrators and the activists who are fighting to free Julian Assange. So stay strong and stay mobilised and stay fighting. And remember, one of the slogans, one of the oldest slogans in the business of popular mobilisation is educate, agitate, mobilise. Take that home with you, continue to do it, stay safe, stay fighting, solidarity.
Free Assange!
crazy.